The galaxy's fractured web. The galaxy had never known peace. It had only ever known fear. Among the stars, fear was the currency of survival. Entire civilizations rose and fell, not because of grand ideals or noble visions, but because they learned to be more afraid of their neighbors than of extinction itself. Alliances were rare, betrayal common, and every race looked upon the others with a deep, instinctive hatred born from millions of years of brutal evolution. The Sorvoks, reptilian warlords whose scales shone like molten gold, had fought the crystalline Vasari for so long that neither side could remember why the first shot had been fired. The insectoid Velter, towering creatures with carapaces of blood-red armor, preyed upon any species weaker than themselves, driven by an endless hunger for domination. Hundreds of lesser empires and rogue states clung to existence between the giants, playing their own games of espionage, treachery, and war. Fear was the only universal language. Inside the neutral fortress of Eler Station, perched above the dying star of Arctis, the leaders of three great empires gathered, not out of hope, but out of shared panic. The chamber was a study in distrust. Sorvok General Draxus perched in a coiled crouch, muscles taut, every flick of his golden tongue betraying his readiness to strike. High Speaker Valzen of the Velter buzzed softly, her compound eyes darting between the exits. Chancellor Varam of the Vasari radiated cold light, his crystalline limbs clinking as he shifted with restless energy. In the center of the chamber, a hologram flickered to life. It showed a spinning blue and green world, Earth. "They call themselves humans," rasped Draxus, his voice low and full of contempt. "A backwater species. Primitive. Newly space-faring. And yet," Valzen hissed, "they destroyed one of your scout wings, Draxus." A murmur rippled through the delegates. Even among bitter enemies, the loss of Sorvok warships was no trivial matter. Their weapons were crude, Draxus snarled, bearing rows of dagger-like teeth. Their tactics were not. Viram leaned forward, light rippling along his facets. "Explain." Draxus hesitated. For a Sorvok, to admit weakness was an act of self-destruction. But the facts were undeniable. "They fought without fear," Draxus finally said. "They sacrificed ships as bait, lured our forces into ambushes. They adapted faster than any species I have ever encountered. As if they reveled in the chaos." The room grew colder. Humans, the counselors realized, were not bound by the instincts that ruled the galaxy. Where others hesitated, humans attacked. Where others feared betrayal, humans trusted their formations and leaders, and punished any enemy who violated that trust with overwhelming vengeance. Worse still, humanity was growing. Fast. Their technology, stolen and adapted from fallen ships, was evolving at a terrifying pace. "This is not a minor nuisance," Viram said at last, voice like grinding glass. "This is a contagion. A single species, unafraid, unchecked, and unbroken by the old fears. Then we must destroy them before they grow stronger," Valzen said. But even as the words were spoken, a ripple of doubt passed through the chamber. If they attacked, would the others betray them? Would Earth use the attack to divide them further? Fear kept the galaxy fractured, and now, something far worse than their old enemies had come. First contact. Humanity unleashed. The Sorvok fleet approached the unmarked human vessel with casual malice. It drifted alone through the empty black, a freighter by the looks of it. Unarmed, slow, oblivious. An easy kill. General Draxus ordered no negotiation, no warning. Sorvok doctrine was simple: erase threats before they became wars. 6 warships dropped from slipspace, forming a half-moon around the human ship. Targeting arrays locked. Plasma lances charged. The order was given. The Sorvok ships fired as one. Brilliant streams of white-hot energy lashed out, only to strike nothing. In a blur of motion impossible for a vessel of its mass, the human ship pivoted, engines flaring. Half the plasma fire missed entirely. The rest bounced harmlessly against energy shields the Sorvoks hadn't detected at all. Before Draxus could issue new commands, the trap was sprung. From the darkness behind the freighter, shapes emerged. Human warships, dozens of them. Sleek, brutal designs, unlike anything the Sorvoks had faced before. They accelerated with terrifying aggression, weapon ports opening like gaping maws. The Sorvoks scrambled to reposition, but it was already too late. Human missiles streaked in, not hundreds but thousands. They weren't elegant. They weren't graceful. They were effective. Some were decoys, others smart bombs, a few simply charged with primitive but overwhelming payloads. Sorvok point defense systems overwhelmed instantly. Explosions tore through the formation. One Sorvok destroyer spiraled into a nearby asteroid, exploding in a silent inferno. The humans pressed the assault without hesitation, splitting their formation into swarms that moved like hunting packs. Sorvok command structures buckled. Orders overlapped. Units panicked. For every human ship disabled, 3 Sorvok vessels were gutted in return. On Drax's flagship, panic clawed at the crew. "Ow!" An officer shrieked. They should fear death. They should retreat. But humans didn't retreat. They advanced. In one final act of desperation, Draxus ordered a full ramming maneuver toward the lead human cruiser. It was a suicidal tactic, but Sorvoks had learned that survival sometimes meant embracing death. The human ship responded not with fear, but something worse: calculation. Before the Sorvok ship could close the distance, coordinated human fire obliterated its engines. As the Sorvok flagship spun helplessly, the human cruiser slid past like a shark circling dying prey. General Draxus' last vision was the human ship's emblem, painted boldly across its hull. A sword plunged into a shattered planet. Then the stars twisted, and his world ended. Across the void, aboard the human flagship Resolute, Captain Mara Keen watched the wreckage drift with grim satisfaction. "Status report," she said calmly. "Enemy fleet neutralized," her executive officer replied. "No survivors detected." Keen nodded. Broadcast the standard message. Within moments, a transmission blared across the surrounding systems. "We come in peace. But know this. Should you raise a hand against us, we will break your arm. Should you bare your fangs, we will pull your teeth. Should you threaten our home, we will burn your heavens." The message wasn't diplomatic. It wasn't elegant. It was a promise. And across the galaxy, in command centers and war councils, the surviving empires realized something far more terrifying than any weapon. Humans were not afraid of them. The broken powers. The galaxy was unraveling faster than anyone could comprehend. The Sorvok defeat should have been a rallying cry for the other empires, a warning to unite against the human threat. Instead, it became a spark to old hatreds. The Velter accused the Vasari of secretly aiding the humans. The Vasari blamed the Velter for deliberately withholding intelligence. Skirmishes erupted along contested borders. Old grudges flared back to life with a fury that made ancient wars seem like mere practice. And in the shadows, humanity moved. They struck not with massive fleets or planetary invasions. At least, not yet. They struck at the heart of what held the alien powers together: trust, or what little remained of it. Human operatives, seated months earlier among outposts and border colonies, fed lies to each side. Communications were subtly sabotaged, military orders forged, diplomatic envoys mysteriously assassinated. Supply lines collapsed under phantom rebellions. Elite guards turned on their leaders, convinced they were betrayed. Panic rippled outward like shockwaves from a dying star. On the bridge of the Velter dreadnought Krishoth, High Speaker Valzin clutched her thorax in agony. Reports poured in, dozens of colonies lost, entire battalions refusing orders, fleets trapped and destroyed. "This cannot be the work of humans alone," one of her advisors buzzed desperately. "They are too few, too new." Valzin knew better. Humans didn't need numbers. They didn't need superior technology. They needed only an enemy divided by fear, and the galaxy had already divided itself long ago. Now the humans simply pushed. In the crystalline halls of Vasari Prime, Chancellor Varam stood before a crumbling council. Accusations flew, alliances frayed. Some demanded peace talks with Earth. Others screamed for vengeance. Viram said nothing. He had seen the footage, not just of human war fleets, but of what happened after. Human occupation didn't mean extinction. It meant reordering, reconstruction, enforced unity. Where human banners rose, crime dropped, corruption vanished, and trade flourished. But the cost was the same everywhere: surrender. And Viram knew his people would never surrender willingly. They would break first. The tipping point came sooner than anyone expected. A Velter strike fleet, convinced the Vasari had allied with humanity, launched a preemptive assault on 3 Vasari core worlds. The Vasari retaliated with planet-killer weapons. The Sorvoks, desperate to reclaim their lost honor, launched their own invasions into weakened territories. Chaos consumed the stars. And through the wreckage, humanity advanced like an unstoppable tide. Planet by planet, system by system, they absorbed the fractured remains of once proud empires. Sometimes they offered terms: amnesty, integration, protection. Other times, they offered nothing at all. It didn't matter. Fear had already hollowed the galactic powers from within. Now humanity only had to sweep up the pieces. Aboard the human dreadnought Resolute, Captain Mara Keen watched the streams of incoming reports with clinical detachment. Vasari defenses collapsing along the Eric's line, her officer confirmed. Velter enclaves requesting negotiation. Sorvok outposts in full retreat. Keen allowed herself a small, grim smile. They feared each other for millennia, she murmured, and that fear weakened them. She turned to the star map, where human banners slowly bloomed across the void like burning suns. Now, she said, they'll learn what it means to fear us. A new order forged in fire. The last Vasari stronghold, a world of shimmering glass, spires, and endless white plains, burned as humanity's legions descended. Viram stood on a cracked balcony overlooking the smoldering horizon. His crystalline skin had dulled to a sickly gray, the light within him dimming. Around him, his people scrambled to evacuate archives, art, anything that could be saved. It would not matter. Nothing would be spared. The humans had come not as conquerors to enslave, but as a force of inevitability. Like gravity, like time. Unstoppable. Unavoidable. Viram closed his eyes and remembered a time when the Vasari were feared, their name a whisper that stilled rebellions and froze ambition. Now, even their final defiance had crumbled into silence. A low rumble shook the tower. The human dropships were landing. There would be no parley, no negotiation. Humanity had learned from the galaxy's long, bloody history. Mercy invited betrayal. At the central command hub, Captain Mara Keen led the first wave. Her armor was scorched from earlier battles, her face lined with fatigue, but her eyes remained hard, sharp, alive. Secure the council chambers, she ordered. Publicly. Make sure every system still listening sees it happen. Her troops moved with mechanical precision. Elite soldiers born not only from Earth's old militaries, but hardened further by wars no alien mind could have imagined. They swept through defenses, disarmed survivors, and uploaded a new reality onto the galactic networks. A simple, brutal transmission. The age of fractured empires is over. Humanity brings order. Those who resist will be broken. Those who join will be protected. Choose. There were no more nuances. No desperate treaties. No second chances. In orbit above, the fleets of a dozen species hung silent. Some had fought humanity and lost. Some had surrendered before shot was fired. All of them now watched as Earth's banners were planted in the ashes of Vasari pride. And somewhere, deep in their surviving instincts, they understood. Humanity was not here to play the old games of betrayal and rivalry. Humanity had no interest in the endless web of fear that had ruled the stars. Humanity had come to tear that web apart and weave something new from its ruins. Later, standing amid the ruins of the Vasari High Council's throne room, Captain Keen received the final report. Resistance minimal, her aide said. Remaining Vasari forces requesting integration. Keen gave a short nod. Good, she said. Then let's finish it. She stepped forward and picked up a fragment of a broken Vasari banner, its once proud sigil barely visible. She crushed it beneath her boot. The message was clear to anyone who would ever look back on this moment. The age of fear was over. The age of humanity had begun. And for the first time in the galaxy's long, violent history, the stars belonged to a race that had not been born from fear, but from the unbreakable will to conquer it.